hopeful that the steps that we take today will put us even closer to our goal of making every household in America a place full of love and trust instead of fear and violence. And I promise you that we will do everything we can here in the White House to support this cause. So before I close, I also want to say how heartened it is to look around the room and see so many men in the audience. And the guys who are here are similar to President Obama and Vice President Biden. You've done so much for so many women. Men like Victor, who have experienced the devastating effect of domestic violence in their own lives. Men like the one that I'm proud to introduce to you now, Joe Torre, a man who barely needs any introduction. Hold on, I'm not done. Hold on. Obviously, one of the most successful baseball managers in history. Joe had more than his share of professional accolades. But what few people know is that growing up, Joe also witnessed domestic abuse. And ever since, he's been a tireless advocate for children and their parents who are victims of violence in home. And I want to thank you, Joe, and I appreciate that your family is with you here today as well, for all that you do and for the wonderful work that you're going to do in the future, working hand in glove with us. And I want you to know that it's going to help us end this cycle of domestic violence once and for all. So please, without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Joe.
What do you think? No. Thank you, Valerie. As a youngster growing up, I'm the youngest of 5 children. There's 8.5 years between me and the next oldest. My dad was a New York City detective. Very strong, bully type, wasn't a drinker, and I never saw him physically abuse my mom. I saw the results of it. I heard him screaming and yelling. I heard him, if he didn't like what she put on the table, throw it against the wall. And one incident stuck with me as an 8 or 9-year-old. My one sister, Ray, who was home living with my mom, I see them come out of the kitchen, my mother and my sister. My sister has a kitchen knife in her hand in front of my mom. My dad is catty-corner on the other side of the table in the dining room, and he's saying, "Put the knife down, put the knife down." I'm in between the two. And with "put the knife down," and my sister wouldn't do it, he reaches into the drawer and was going for his revolver. The thing I remember doing was going over and taking the knife out of my sister's hand and putting it on the dining room table and say, "There." And everything after that is very fuzzy for me. But this stuff was going on in my home. My dad used to come home in the middle of the night. He used to work late. And he'd have friends with him wake my mom up to cook while they played cards till daylight. And my mom would never talk about it. She never talked about it with me. I had older siblings who used to whisper, so I know in an effort to keep me from being involved or knowing about stuff. Meanwhile, I thought because they were whispering that I did something wrong. And I grew up with a lot of guilt, never shared it with anybody. And I really didn't tie the two together. It was basically, I was a nervous child, really afraid to go to school a lot. When I went to high school, I played hooky a lot because I was fearful of not knowing my stuff and getting punished for it. I just had very low self-esteem. I was very fortunate. I had an ability to play baseball. I had a place to hide out. And I as I say, went through even my adult life, playing baseball, knowing if I didn't do well, I felt like I was responsible for the team losing. I mean, it was weird when you go back and think about it. But these are the scars that I took from childhood into my adult life. And when my wife, Allie, she was pregnant with our daughter, Andrea, in 1995, I had just gotten the Yankee managing job. But Allie was 8 months pregnant, and she said, would you like to, we were living in Cincinnati at the time, which was Allie's home, says, would you like to go to Life Success with me? I said, sure. Well, she's 8 months pregnant. I'm going to say yes to anything she wants me to do. So we go to this self-help symposium, which I knew nothing about what was happening. About day 2 or 3, I found myself standing in front of perfect strangers, crying my eyes out. And I realized I was saying things that I never talked about. And with that, I went back to the house, called my older sisters, and asked them to fill me in on some of the stuff that I just was nervous about. And they told me things like when my mom told my dad that she was pregnant with me, and he threw her down the steps. And he used to hit her head against the wall, and she was very frightened. But meanwhile, she never shared any of that with me. But it wasn't until 1995 that I was able to connect the dots. Not that I'm blaming this, but at least I understood why I had these feelings instead of feeling so inferior to everybody. And I think it helped me in my job, as a manager, where you're a little more sensitive to players, to issues. And but even though I know what caused it, they still haven't disappeared. I've been very fortunate. As I say, I've had an ability to play baseball, manage baseball. I've done well because I've had some pretty good players. And but it's interesting because when we put our Safe at Home Foundation together, when we got to New York, we always like to do something geared toward children. And Allie said, what do you want to do? I said, well, how about domestic violence? And it sort of caught her off guard. And we decided to gear our efforts through education geared toward children, middle school children. And we started our foundation in 2002. We have safe rooms in schools. We have 9 schools and 3 family justice centers in the New York area. We've branched out to L.A. Hopefully we can get things rolling this coming year. And we put a master's level counselor in our Margaret's place. My mom's name was Margaret. And we just called it It's a Safe Room for Kids. I know if I had something like this growing up, I may not have carried these scars as long as I did, and these guilt feelings and the fact that I was alone. At least I would have had somebody to talk to and shared it with and realized that there were other kids that had to deal with these types of emotions. When we were going to have our first dinner at our Safe at Home Foundation, I had a video group following me, and we went into a middle school, and I started talking to the kids. And I said, yeah, we'll talk about baseball. I said, but I want to explain what this camera crew is behind me. And I was explaining that I grew up in this environment. And as I was talking, there were about 6 or 8 youngsters out there. Their heads were going like this. And I realized we struck a nerve here. Children are so important for us. They're our treasure. They're our treasure. We need to make them safe. We need to have them just feel free, feel safe, feel that they can talk to people about what's going on in their homes. You don't have to necessarily get physically abused. Just children who witness it have big issues also. And, we're just determined in our Safe at Home Foundation to just make sure that we make an impact on ending this cycle and saving lives. I know we had a youngster who was thinking about joining a street gang, and he came into one of our Margaret's places and came back, visited again, come back and visit again. all of a sudden he was looking at colleges to enroll in. Somebody to listen to these youngsters. I mean, awareness, and I want to thank President Obama and Vice President Biden. I mean, awareness is probably the biggest deterrent to domestic violence and abuse that goes on. And what better place to raise awareness in the White House? And I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come here. And Valerie, I'm yours, kiddo. Anytime you need me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Even after all these many years, I know that it isn't easy to stand up here and tell these stories, and yet it's going to mean so much to so many children. So once again. And I wanted to recognize another person who's lent her voice to this effort. When the Department of Justice put out a call for celebrities to join their list of people speaking out, Mariska Hargitay was the first person to say yes. Mariska? There you are. Stay there! Her Joyful Heart Foundation, as well as her role as an amazing detective, she has made all the difference for many, many women. So thank you, Mariska. Thank you very much. We're going to have a short break, but don't get up. Stay where you are because you don't want to miss the big guys. So stay where you are, but talk amongst yourselves. Thank you all so very much.
Ladies and gentlemen,